Castle Marwood, Minstead, the home of Mr. Daniel Hanbury, his wife Sylvia and their 2 daughters, the 3rd son of Sir Thomas Hanbury and nephew of the famous pharmacologist Daniel Hanbury. The family were wealthy, with an estate in Italy as well as a London townhouse. Daniel was a partner in Allen and Hanbury's, who made baby food and manufactured medicines. They had factories in Bethnal Green and Ware and offices throughout the world. They were a Quaker family and as such had a concern for philanthropy and the well-being of those that worked for them.
How do we fulfill our responsibility? How do we do it?
What responsibility?
If we are going to do it, then we need to decide what exactly it is that we're going to achieve.
Daniel?
Is this the same as where? In some ways, that was easier than this. But this is local. This is where we live. And I'm not the boss around here. However, perhaps this is more important. I ought to talk it through. I ought to talk to Sylvia about it.
Yes, go on, I'm all ears. Macaroons!
I beg your pardon. Oh, sorry, darling. I didn't... Have I been talking to myself again?
Yes.
And you've been seated there the whole time, have you?
Yes, I have. Well, go on. You were going to talk to me about responsibility?
Well, yes, we've been given a massive responsibility. When we moved here 10 years ago, we could not have imagined what we as a world were going to go through. We moved here because it was quiet and there were beautiful grounds with which we could do what we wanted. In a small way, we could share it with our community. It is great to have the young people using the tennis court here, and it is wonderful to host cricket matches, but I feel we have a bigger responsibility.
Well, what are you thinking? You said something about where?
Well, our factory in Ware and the one in Bethnal Green, we see those people as more than just employees. We see them as people we have responsibility for. We provide for them, and we seek to educate them and improve the quality of their lives. They and all of their families.
Yes.
Well, that is what I believe we have to do here.
Well, that is all very well, but we don't employ that many people here. What are you thinking?
No, we don't employ that many people, but they are our neighbours, and this is our community. And we have seen the grief on the faces of those we do employ as they have been told of the passing of their loved ones, their sons taken by war, fathers, husbands and brothers all taken. Many others have returned and are not the men they once were, living every day with the physical reminder of their torment. Then we were hit with this horrible flu. And then, last week at the meeting on Sunday, do you remember the Bible passage that was read?
Isaiah 58.
Well, yes, exactly. Isaiah 58. And I've been thinking about it all week, ever since. There was one particular verse that stuck with me. Verse 12. Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. And we can help make that happen. We can help make this a place to live, not just to exist.
Well, is that not different and surely more difficult than what we are doing already in Bethnal Green and Ware? They are our employees and we know that we need to look after them. I feel that the villagers will be offended if we interfere in their lives and pay their medical bills. We cannot force people. We merely need to educate and set example.
You are right, exactly right. We cannot force people to do anything, but what we can do is give them the opportunity and then let them do what they want to with it. You cannot decide if you like Mozart if you've never been given the opportunity to hear it. We need to give the people the opportunity to experience the riches that life and culture have to offer and the aspiration to move towards it.
Well, I see what you're saying. It's very similar to the aims that we use at the Women's Institute and the courses that they run at the technical school. But surely what you're suggesting has already been done. What is any different?
Well, yes, I see. However, it is kind of being done to people rather than allowing them to experience and to choose. God has given us the answer! And he has given us the means. I need to send a telegram.
What for?
Repairing the breach. Restoring the streets to live in. The army have put up for sale all of the huts, etc. in Rumsey, as they have disbanded the remount department. One of the large huts will make an excellent hall for the people of Minstead. It will give a home to so many of those organisations, like the Women's Institute and the Social Club, and it can be used for the pleasure and education and use of the people. With the right management, those breaches and streets will begin to be repaired and restored before we know it. And how ironic that God would use something that was used to create the breach to mend it.
Mr. Hanbury arranged with Mr. Hickman to transport the hut from Romsey and erect it where it stands today on land already owned by Mr. Hanbury. The hut was renovated and transformed from an army remand hut to one with state-of-the-art facilities. It even had its own electricity generator. It had a beautiful dance floor put down, a floor that was considered the best in the south of England. At its opening, 400 people attended.
In the early years, the hut was busy and began to fulfil the vision which Mr. Hanbury had for it. It became a hub for activities in the village. There were films, lectures, visiting productions. The Women's Institute met there, as did a boys' club. There was even a tap dancing class. The early to middle years of the 20th century were far from the easiest. The First World War had begun a cultural and technological shift in society in general. In Britain there was a Great Depression, the death, the abdication and the coronation of 3 separate kings. There was the political upheaval of the 1920s, where we had 4 different governments in 2 years and a national strike. That is not to mention the rise in power of Stalin in communist Russia, Mussolini in Italy, Franco in Spain, and Hitler in Germany. As the storm clouds gathered across Europe and as the Second War became inevitable, it looked like the breach that had been repaired was only temporary and the community was about to be torn apart once again. The interwar years were important in embedding Daniel Hanbury's vision for the hut, as it had become known. Before, during and after the Second World War, one couple was central to the activities in the hut and were very active in the social life of the village. Mr. Albion and Mrs. Violet Smith. They were employed by Mr. Hanbury to be the caretakers of the hut. Mr. Smith had been the steward on Mr. Hanbury's yacht, but when his wife was advised to leave London for her health, Mr. Hanbury knew exactly where they could help him. We meet Mr. and Mrs. Smith now. The year is 1940 and the village is about to get over 80 new residents as members of the armed forces are to be billeted in the village.
Well, Albie, what news? 3 warrant officers and 80 men all come to be stationed here? What with that and the requirements to be used as an emergency food supply? Well, it's not quite the same as it was, is it? I mean, with all the teas and the cricket and all.
Very true, Vi. But Mr. Amber says we've got to be as hospitable as possible. And Lady Congleton can be a bit of a ham. She can be a force to be reckoned with, I can tell you. Oh. Yes, it's certainly going to be a very interesting time.
Entertainment, education and the use of the people. Well, I think we just carry on as we've always been doing. In these dark days we need to continue to put things on so people can enjoy the things that we've already got. Yeah. Oh, I mean, in the months ahead, I mean, it's going to be some dark days, isn't it? And we may not get the chance to relax.
Very true, Vi. And if invasion happens, and Mr. Hitler decides to take up residence there at the trusty servant, these lads, they're not going to have any time for enjoyment or fun. And that goes for us as well. We've always done good teas. Why don't we set up a canteen for the soldiers? You know, cups of tea, bovril, that sort of thing. And maybe sell cigarettes. But we can't have anything stronger. You know, what with Mr. Amber being Quaker and all. But it's something. We've got to maintain some form of normality as much as possible.
Dances. We know everyone loves our dances. And our hall has got the best floor around. So let's hold some dances. Yeah. The only thing is, we have to make sure that those soldiers behave themselves. I mean, you can have a dance without having any of that monkey business, you know.
I'm sure they will, Vi. I'm sure they will. Besides, the girls round here are very sensible. I'm sure with your careful and watchful eye at every dance, my darling, nothing untoward will go on at all.
Dances were certainly a large part of the contribution of the hut to Minstead. Dances were held weekly, and by 1945, more than weekly. The canteen run by the Smiths was popular with the soldiers, and not just those from Britain, but also the Canadians who were stationed up at Boulderwood. The Entertainment National Service Association put on concert parties at the hut, and regular activities continue to meet there. The hall continued, even through the dark days of World War II, to live out the original vision to be used for the entertainment, education and the use of the people. Its aim to be a place where life was enjoyed was certainly evident. Things seemed to be going well, and as the war ended, everything returned to a sense of normality. The tanks and the soldiers left. The village had once again experienced the loss of sons and daughters, and everyone had lived through the rationing and the fear of the war. People had changed. Dr. Danby chose to have his surgery at the hut, and the people of the village appreciated the immense gift of Mr. Hambry to them and to future generations. The hut was a hub for the community, to live, to laugh and to get better. However, in 1948 something happened that nobody could have imagined.
On the 21st of July 1948, Mr. Daniel Hambry died. Those that had worked for him and who had known him to be a man of kindness mourned. The people of Minstead had lost a friend, a neighbour and a benefactor. It also looked like they were going to lose the hut.
It turns out that Mr. Hanbury had not made the necessary legal arrangements for passing the hut into the ownership of the village. The first committee that was set up never actually had legal title, and so the hut was included in the estate and would have to be sold in order to make up the estate. Something needed to be done because the people were about to lose something they had grown to value and love. A meeting was called.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. Thank you all for coming. Now, we find ourselves in difficult circumstances. Not only have we lost a dear friend in Mr. Hanbury, but we may also lose the hut. As there was no written agreement for the hut to be used by and owned by the village in perpetuity, it becomes part of the estate of our dear departed friend. Now, I've spoken to the executors and they are willing to let us buy the hut, but that will cost £3,000. Mr. Young, would you please update us on your discussions that you've had with the Rural District Council, please?
Thank you, Sir Richard. And there has been a discussion between us and the council, and we have tried to prove the worth of the hut to the community and the value for Minstead. And they do feel for us in this situation. They understand and think that the noble intention of giving the hut would in some way like to honour the noble and philanthropic intentions of Mr. Hanbury. We do need to note, however, that these are difficult times and that money, as we all know, is very scarce. However, they have managed to agree to give us a loan of £1,500. And that is half the money, and we will need to raise the other half.
Well, that is almost good news. The floor is open for any suggestions as to where we go from here.
£1,500? That will take us years to raise that sort of money. And it doesn't matter how nice the executors are being, they're not going to wait for us.
I don't want to see the hut closed. I've had some good times here, and during the war it was this place and the dances and the entertainment that made life bearable. It would be a shame to see it go. Is there nothing else we can do?
I'm sure there are lots of fundraising ideas. It's time, I think, that's important.
I think there's a lot to be done. A flower show where people pay to enter the competitions could be used to raise money. We could advertise across the district and people could come and view the displays. If we charged them to a nominal sum for the programmes, they could have a cup of tea as well. So public subscription, why not? I'm sure we're not beyond it.
That's not a bad idea, but it is only one event.
True, but we would need events going on at least monthly. However, why not ask those groups that use the hall to find ways of raising money? They're the ones who benefit from it. The hub can show others why it's so important. If we want to keep it, we need to work for it.
May I make a few observations and I hope a solution to the predicament in which we find ourselves. It seems to me that the original vision that dear Daniel had for the hut was that the people of Minstead might use it for their entertainment and their education. I have seen both firsthand, and I see the value of this place and the vision behind it. As the chairwoman of the local WI, and during the war, of the local invasion committee, and also in my roles with the district council, we appreciate all of the hospitality that you have shown us over the years, and we would hate to see this resource destroyed and taken from the people of this village. The desire not to see it go is proof of both its value and its worth. Expediency is essential in these matters. The executors will not wait forever for us to decide what to do and to raise the money. I also believe that the money from the council will not be instant. Therefore, in memory of Mr. Hanbury, and because I can see the worth and the value of all the hut brings to this community, I am prepared to lend the money for the entire purchase, so that the hut can be secured for the people of Minstead to do with as was originally intended, to be a place of entertainment and education and enjoyment.
On behalf of all the people here, Lady Congleton, can I thank you for such a generous offer? Will all those in favour say aye?
Aye.
Any against? No. Then all that is left for us to do is give a hearty round of applause to our new benefactor.
The hall was saved, but the work had just begun. The village set about raising the money to pay back Lady Congleton and to finally take into ownership the gift that was always theirs to begin with.
A management committee was organised and a trust deed written to confirm the original wishes of Mr. Hanbury. The people of the village worked hard and arranged all sorts of events, including the flower show, which has now been running for over 70 years. Excursions to the New Forest with hospitality at the hall were arranged for children from Portsmouth and Southampton, some even remembering spending much of their own childhood and youth making millions of sandwiches for such excursions, all in order to save the hall.
By 1963, some 15 years later, the debts were paid in full and the hut, which was now known as the hall, was firmly in the possession of the community of Minstead. Having gone through all of the work to secure the hall for the village, it was used by many in the community and was appreciated.
Many of the activities and organisations set up in order to raise money for the hall continued, and the hall seemed to be established as a central hub of the community.
However, in 1973, the hall was in a dangerous territory once more, and with only £54 left in the bank account. Difficult decisions needed to be made, and there was much soul searching as to what should happen. One person who played a pivotal role was Mrs. Annie Cooper.
Annie had been one of the people who in her youth had worked hard, along with others in the community, to raise the money to secure the hall for the people of Minstead. When it seemed in peril, she knew she had to do something.
I take it the meeting went well then?
No, Bob. Actually, it didn't go very well. It looks like we're going to have to shut the hall.
What do you mean, shut the hall? You can't shut the hall, it belongs to the community.
Well, from what I can work out, that's part of the problem. It just seems to belong to any old Tom, Dick and Harry who fancy somewhere cheap to hire out. We've got £54 left in the bank, and the hall is in need of repair. And we might just have enough money to pay Alec the caretaker his wages.
Well, do we need to organise some sort of fundraising in order to get the hall back on its feet?
What would be the point when the hall committee keep on being pressured and letting it out for free at heavily reduced rates?
How's that going? How's that happening? What's going on?
Well, from what I can work out, people are becoming members of the social club and then letting it out at reduced rates or for next to nothing. And I'm pretty certain that isn't what Dan Hanbury had set it up for. And I'm pretty certain that's not what me and all the others have worked our bloody backsides off just to pay the debt for Lady Congleton.
There's your answer.
What?
Look at the trust deed. When it was established to reflect Mr. Hanbury's wishes back in 1948, it will say in the trustees the purposes of the hall. With that in mind, if the hall is not being used for those purposes, then technically you can take them to court. It won't make you popular. You have to decide whether it's worth it. But if the hall is worth it, and it's not being used for the purposes set out in the trust, and it's being abused, then someone needs to make a stand. It seems to me, Annie, that it needs someone to take control of the situation and make sure that the hall is run for the purposes for which it was intended. That is why these things are put in trust deeds, so everyone knows where they're going, what they're doing, and the purpose of the whole blinking thing. It needs to be run on a proper business footing. It's all very well throwing money at it and letting it out for free, but if you can't look after it, it disappears and no one benefits. You've got a decision to make, Annie.
Annie did indeed make her decision. She got a copy of the trust deed and saw that the hall was provided for the entertainment, education and enjoyment of the people of Minstead. If the hall was going to fulfil its vision, it needed to be maintained and looked after. And with that in mind, a balance needed to be struck between the commercial and the community side of the hall, with the commercial aspect subsidising the community.
Annie took over as chair of the committee. The committee ran the hall on a business footing with proper terms agreed with those using the hall. The hall was put on a much more secure footing for the benefit of the people of Minstead.
As we have seen, this wasn't the first problem the hall had faced, and it certainly wasn't the last, and it won't be the last. Approaches from property developers and businesses all seeing a prime piece of real estate. However, worse than that would be if the people of Minstead let it go without noticing or realising what they were losing.
Thankfully, at the moment that is not the case. The hall continued and continues to be used by the people of Minstead, both for entertainment and education. Junior Minstead, the Minstead Players, the weekly auctions, barn dances, dance classes, wedding receptions, as well as all manner of other events take place in the hall on a regular basis. There has even been a visit from an astronaut, not to mention the fact that it is also home of the social club.
Daniel Hanbury's vision in 1920 was to be a restorer of streets to live in. He provided a place for the community to better themselves and enjoy themselves. When they nearly lost it, the people of Minstead understood what it was they were losing and fought for it and valued it. Now, after 100 years, we are blessed to still have it with us, and it is up to us to use it for our entertainment and education and to continue to honour the original visions of making Minstead a place with streets to live in, a community that is together and enriching each other.